everyone, I'm Ben with the BTC Sessions. I'm here in Calgary, and today I'd like to bring to you an interview I had with a guy by the name of John Carvalho. Now, if you're unfamiliar with John, he's been in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space since around 2012. He's now involved with an adult website by the name of Xotika TV, and he got a lot of attention last year for his now infamous interview of Roger Ver. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the interview I'm referring to, I highly encourage you to check it out down in the links below. We'll just say that it ends rather abruptly. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking now and I will let you guys enjoy my interview with John Carvalho. Hello everyone, welcome to the BTC Sessions. I am here with an interview I'm very excited about. I've got John Carvalho. He is CEO at Xotika TV. He famously had a hell of an interview with Roger Ver a while back, which was meme fuel for the entire crypto Twitterverse. And I'm happy to have him on the show to talk a little bit about, I guess, crypto in general and where Bitcoin's at, and the Lightning Network. We're going to touch on that as well. So, John, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, can you, for a lot of my viewers tend to be people that are new to Bitcoin or are still kind of learning the ropes. So can you tell everybody, I guess, who you are, a little bit about yourself, and then how you got into the space?
Sure. I've been in Bitcoin since late 2012. I think I bought my first Bitcoin for maybe $10, $11. And right away it pulled me in. You know, I got into everything I could. I did some LITECOIN mining, you know, mess around with that back then they were like crypto securities and shit like that, you know, and just got into everything, dived into the forums, learned as much as I could, hung out in all the chats, and just absorbed everything I could. I didn't really feel like I knew anything about Bitcoin until at least 6 months. And even now, you know, and I'm an enthusiast, I still try, you know, it's hard to keep up and keep tabs and stay educated. But, you know, I got into it because I saw, I think it was maybe the articles about when they was talking about Silk Road. This was before it closed, but that was when I first started looking into it, and I was like, "Oh, what's this? They have digital money," and then I just kept diving deeper and deeper after that.
Awesome,
and
awesome.
Then, since then, I used to hang out with the trading guys at Whale Pool a few years back, and we would do interviews with exchanges and stuff like that. And then eventually, I joined Xotika to do video streaming with Bitcoin as a way to give people more privacy and control of their money, you know, no third-party payment processors, etc.
Awesome. And how long has Xotika been going?
It pre-exists my joining it. I think it's maybe two and a half years or so is when they first launched it. But I joined maybe about a little over a year ago. And I've spent, you know, the past 6 months or so basically learning about the industry, visiting studios, you know, getting feedback from users and models and things like this, and basically implementing a strategic plan that we worked on to make sure we have the features people want, and, you know, addressing people being comfortable with using Bitcoin to do this instead of credit cards. And just right now we have a major update that's due like in the next week or so that we're going to release, and that's kind of going to be, for me, the kickoff. You know, it's when we're going to have the features that I finally have addressed most people's concerns, and we'll start advertising and promoting and stuff like that.
Awesome. And I'll link to that down below. People can go check it out. But great. So I'm gonna
disclaimer: it is an adult website.
Yes,
you know, it's not for children, 18 plus.
Yeah. Fair enough. Now I want to touch on some general topics, and then we'll get into some lightning stuff in a bit. But I wanted to get your take on the entire crypto space in general, kind of, I guess, where we're at, where we've been over the past year, mostly in relation to Bitcoin versus all the altcoins out there. And we've seen there's this metric used called market dominance, and in relation to total market cap of Bitcoin versus other coins. And we've seen that go down, Bitcoin dominance go down because there's so many new coins. But when you're looking at the crypto space, how much of a Bitcoin maximalist are you? And are there other coins that you think have use cases, or are you more in the mindset that Bitcoin will kind of be that foundation, or where are you at?
I would say that in practice, I don't behave much differently than a Bitcoin maximalist. You know, you'll see me on Twitter giving people shit about shitcoins and ICOs and all the things that any other maximalist would. But I do actually think altcoins have a purpose, and I don't think that they're just horrible outright. And I don't think that it will ever just only be Bitcoin. But I do think Bitcoin will always most likely be the dominant and safest and most secure and best place to save your value. I don't think I really think there won't ever be a better way to save and store your value. It has other features. You know, you can use it as currency. You can use it for other ways. But I think that ultimately is going to be the best way to describe it, is like digital gold, or the best place where if you can leave your money sitting there for a few years, there's not going to be a better investment. As far as the space in general, talk things like market dominance and, you know, Bitcoiners versus altcoiners or versus forks and all these ICOs, all these things. I haven't been in Bitcoin since the beginning, but I've been in it long enough to see that it's extremely cyclical. And the cycles come with basically you get a wave of hype, and this wave is like kind of building, and you always get something like we had all the first altcoins, and this was like the kind of first hype. And then we had the first bubble, not the first bubble, but we had a bubble. And then we had the wave of Bitcoin securities, where people were like issuing, you know, Ponzi schemes or mining projects that they would issue shares of, so you could own part of the project. But it wasn't using crypto, but it was, you could only use Bitcoin to buy these shares. And that kind of preceded the wave to before Gox crashed. And then that went away. And then we had the real altcoin bubble, like of where we just got hundreds and hundreds of them. And then we have ICOs. And these cycles just keep coming, and they're like iterations. And when you're in Bitcoin long enough, you go through a few crashes and see all the waves of hype and the noobs that come in, and then everybody crying when it comes back down, and then the kind of rest period where we have to raise again. It's the same thing keeps happening, just on a larger scale. So I think the lesson to learn is that Bitcoin always ends up being the safer option, and it always ends up recovering its price. So if you want to value Bitcoin, value it at its highest price always, because you know it will get there again. That's why you're always going to regret selling your Bitcoin, etc. But I do think altcoins have a purpose. I think that, you know, if we want to say decentralization is important, well, Bitcoin is only one network, you know, and it does have its own aspects of decentralization. It has to worry about miners, nodes, development, whatever. And so I do like the idea of there being another strong chain, or even two more strong chains that people can use. And it also provides utility, like maybe with atomic swaps, or maybe ways for people to add more privacy to their coins by hopping chains, or whatever it may be, trading against them, whatever. So I think there's always going to be utility. There's always going to be altcoins. But I do think most of them are narratives, there's stories that people tell to try to pump the coin and make it worth more and get rich. So the stuff like LITECOIN, it seems more stable. It's been around a while. It's like a baby Bitcoin. Monero is interesting because it has its own little design, and you know it's a different kind of way to do the blockchain, and it focuses on privacy. But I think in the end, Bitcoin will end up having any real feature that any altcoin is going to provide, and it will do it more securely. So they're kind of short term, or always going to be, you know, secondary to Bitcoin.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned a couple coins that you think have their own utility, their own place in the space. On the opposite side of that, you have been a vocal opponent of Bcash, and you famously had an interview with Roger Ver. Well, how long ago was that?
I think it was maybe October last year, so not too long ago.
And you haven't done too much in past that, where you've gone to talk about it, about what happened and so on and so forth. I haven't seen a lot of interviews regarding that. I mean, the whole thing it really riled people up, and there was essentially just meme fuel for the Twitterverse immediately after that interview ended abruptly. So, I mean, what was the experience like for you afterwards? Because I imagine you had people blowing up your Twitter, and you probably had a lot of response from that. What kind of feedback did you get from it?
I mean, in general, it was a lot of fun. My general statement was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that people got what they wanted out of it, Bitcoiners. As far as getting more into it, I was, I was worried. I was stressed a little bit, because I knew that everybody really wanted the interview they weren't getting from him. Like every time he would be interviewed, he'd have these party lines, and he'd say this bullshit, and he'd say his lies and his pitches and his marketing kind of prepared lines. And nobody would ever really challenge the times that he lied or the kind of ways that he would spread information or twist things. And nobody did that to him and held him accountable live. And the people that do know me kind of know that I'm that way, that I don't really like people to try to bullshit me or try to kind of lie about Bitcoin or scam noobs. So they were counting on me anyway. And I was like, how the hell am I going to do it? Because he had done an interview with Bitcoin Uncensored back when they had John Seth and Chris, and they were kind of well known for being guys to hold their guests accountable. But when they had Roger Ver, they didn't really do it. They're kind of more friendly with him and respecting what he's done in the past, etc. But even though everybody says, oh, Roger did a lot for Bitcoin, I don't know. I've been in Bitcoin for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years now, and I don't remember a time that he was trustworthy or doing good things for Bitcoin. So I don't know. I don't know why people, I feel like he's the one that perpetuated that reputation. But anyway, I basically spent 2 or 3 days reading, watching his recent interviews and learning what his kind of current prepared speeches are, and just prepared a list of questions I wanted to ask and things I wanted to challenge him on. I didn't get even halfway through the list before the interview ended, but I in the end I did get to say a lot of what I wanted to say, and we did get to see that other side of him. I think once he realized that he was in a corner and I wasn't going to let him bullshit, that he needed a way to exit the interview. And once he heard me say Bcash here and there, he was like, oh, this is my way out. And so I think that's really what he was doing, was he just wanted a way out, and he decided to be dramatic, and he really delivered. Everybody really got a good show from him when he started. And once he started, acting like a baby and going crazy, I decided to get trolly too and just have fun with it.
Well, if anything, it was entertaining. So I had a blast watching it. So I mean, let's dive into a little bit of I guess what's currently happening with Bitcoin. So there's been a lot of stuff. I mean, SegWit has been live for quite some time now, and it was exciting when it first activated, and then it just kind of it was slow going, kind of getting that adoption, mainly because there's a lot of big companies that were slow dragging to implement it. Like if I name a couple, BitPay and Coinbase, it was taking a long time to get them to do that, but now they're starting to batch transactions and have SegWit. So it's helping. And transaction fees have since dropped quite a bit. And so leading up to SegWit, there's a lot of FUD around it. Things like, oh, your funds are going to be stolen in any SegWit address. Anybody can just steal your funds anytime. And I think we had Charlie Lee allocate a bunch of LITECOIN to a SegWit address and said, oh, there's like $1 million here, come get it. And nobody did. Now we have SegWit. I mean, I haven't had my funds stolen, and they're all on SegWit addresses at this point. I don't know if you've had your funds stolen. I imagine not.
I've used SegWit, and there's obviously no issue with or unsafe aspect to using SegWit. All of the stalling, all of the delay, how long it's actually taken to go from SegWit design to activation to implementation has mostly been stalled by these larger actors, whether it be the largest miners that stalled its activation on through the initial way they tried to get it activated, and then we had to do UASF to get it soft forked in through the nodes, or the SegWit 2x attack, when all these big companies, instead of just adopting SegWit, they wanted the big blocks and they wanted to cause a fork. That slowed everything down a lot. And then even after they lost that battle, in spectacular fashion. They still had the Bitcoin Cash fork that they were trying to support and add to their networks, and they prioritized this over adding SegWit or getting or contributing to Lightning implementation, finishing that. They just kind of always ignored the off-chain scaling stuff. I don't know why people have different theories. I think it's that they just don't want to have to do development work, maybe, and they don't want to have to change their systems. I don't know the reasons, but it ends up making them behave in ways that look very evil. But now most of them capitulated. The miners capitulated to UASF. The exchanges have capitulated to the high fees and had to implement and prepare to have SegWit. And now they're going to capitulate to Lightning too. It's just going to be ridiculous not to use it. They're going to have competitors that install it, and their fees are going to be so cheap and so fast. And then they're going to say, well, Coinbase, how come when I use so-and-so, everything is so different? Why don't you do this? And they're going to have to compete. So they're always going to capitulate to the latest tech of Bitcoin. I don't know why they kick and scream on the way, but it seems like that's always going to happen as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, part of it too was everybody expects, oh, there's a new idea. Why isn't it working overnight? And people don't realize it takes time to implement these things, to test and properly prepare something for usage on a network that is hundreds of billions of dollars. Yeah. You can't just toss it in there and see what happens.
Some of it more than others, though. I mean, we had SegWit going on Xotika. We're a very small company, and we had it going. I have 2 programmers, and we had SegWit going like the same week that it was activated. So I don't know. Obviously, it's going to be more complicated to implement it on a setup like Coinbase, where they probably have a more complex, back end. But I just could not believe how long it actually took them, especially with all the fees that they were making people pay or paying themselves. There's something else going on. I don't know what it is. Hopefully they'll capitulate to trying at some point, and they'll just give it and embrace Bitcoin. I saw actually last weekend that Coinbase is trying to do some sort of open source development project where they're trying to get they're trying to hire people to be part of their team that focus on open source development. I'm skeptical it will be open source for Bitcoin or for Lightning or for things we actually care about, and probably it'll be more like BitPay's open source for their own little projects, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we've seen the same kind of FUD that happened with SegWit is now happening with Lightning. There's been videos, and the first thing that happened was everybody over the past year has been saying, oh, it's vaporware. It's never even going to materialize. Well, the beta just launched on mainnet, and we see these explosions of activity on the Lightning Network on mainnet for Bitcoin, and it seems to be growing at an exponential rate. And I mean, you can already play around with it. Now, you need to have some technical know-how to set up a Lightning node and so on and so forth, but it's here already. So clearly it's not vaporware, but we're starting to see the same kind of FUD that surrounded SegWit. I mean, does the whole situation look similar to you?
I mean, yeah, what I wanted to say is, if you are new and you're watching this show, the most important thing you can do is to learn about the reputation of the people who you trust. If you can learn about the reputation of me or of Vinny Lingham or of Roger Ver or certain core developers, if you really dig in and look at the history and find the reputation of the people that you're interested in listening to, you will be able to determine whether they have a good, trustworthy reputation or not. And the same people that badmouth SegWit are the same people that badmouth Lightning, and they're the same people that try to promote Bitcoin Cash or Bcash, same people that try to stall SegWit. It's always the same people. So once you're here long enough, it's easy to tell, and you can start dismissing what some of these people say. When Vinny says something critical about Bitcoin, he doesn't have a clue what he's talking about. He just has a decent amount of a loud voice. He has a decent amount of listeners, but in the end, he's not somebody that you should trust. He's not somebody you should get your information from.
I'm glad you brought up Vinny, because I was just on a show with Adam Meister the other day, and it was almost exactly a year ago that I was on a This Week in Bitcoin show with him, and Vinny Lingham actually ended up popping in partway through the show. It was early in the year, and Bitcoin had tapped all-time highs, but was kind of coming down. It was like $900. And he came on and said that basically he fudded it up the entire time. He wouldn't say what he knew, but he said he knew something and that Bitcoin was basically going to turn around. He said that he sold a whole bunch of his and that it was going to have to drop down to $300 soon. And then basically the entire year he was 100% proven wrong. And then he's out there now saying that Lightning will never be used because it's too complicated for regular people. And to me, that seems short-sighted. It's like people.
It's like saying that computers are too complicated for people. Like programming is too complicated for people. The internet is too complicated. Email is too complicated. But eventually these things get enough development attention paid to them, both in the usability of the features through the programming, and also through like the interfaces and making them easy to use for people and not have to know how it works. So yeah, maybe if you want to implement Lightning Network while it's in alpha, you're going to have to dig in and talk to developers and learn some, hacks to get it to work however you're trying to use it. But once it's out of beta, once it's deployed, once it's, officially released, it'll be usable. And you can already see like some of the Zap wallet, some of these wallets they're doing, there are already sites where you can find these short videos. You can see how simple it is. Like you go to a site, you scan the Lightning code, it shows up just like a Bitcoin transaction. You send the transaction, the channel is open, the Litecoin is instantly sent with cheap fees. It's nonsense to say that it's vaporware. It's nonsense to say it's too complicated. Yeah, it's too complicated if you had to program it all by hand or be one of the people programming, getting it to actually work in the first place. It takes some really great programmers and experts. Luckily, we have them. Luckily, the best programmers in the world that work on blockchains choose to work on Bitcoin. So. It's just FUD. I don't know why he does that. I don't know what his interests are. I saw some data about that. There are some pretty big Bcash bags that people are holding on to. So it could just be they want to make sure that Bitcoin Cash has a narrative for a while, that they can try to generate try to get liquidity so they can unload those bags over however many years it takes for them to do so. And their narrative will be that Bitcoin Cash has bigger blocks, and that's what Bitcoin doesn't have, and it's going to fail.
Yeah, I would agree there. Now, I wanted to, there's been some videos that people have put out with a lot of they use certain talking points to, I guess, drive some fear around how Lightning actually operates, and one of the misconceptions is that in order for it to work, like if I wanted to have a Lightning transaction between you and I would have to open up an individual channel with every person I want to transact with. So you or Starbucks or I don't know, the 7-Eleven down the street, I have to have a channel open with everybody. That's largely not the case. And we've seen this in some of these images of the Lightning Network online, where it looks like a spider web. It's amazing how quickly it's growing. But there's been other things, like people saying that, once again, a la SegWit, funds can be stolen, or you have to rely on third parties, or that they're being co-opted by the banks. And a lot of this is based around, there's this whole Blockstream conspiracy, and that Blockstream has hired a bunch of the core devs, and that they've basically co-opted the development side of things and use censorship to prevent any input. So, I mean, what's your take on this whole conspiracy that Blockstream is controlling everything and they've been co-opted by the banks?
Yeah, you covered a lot. I would say as far as the censorship aspect or Blockstream being co-opted, first of all, Bitcoin Core is just one software implementation of the Bitcoin protocol. They don't control what anybody chooses to run. If Bitcoin Core does something that that the users of Bitcoin don't like, adds a feature, adds some kind of change to the protocol that they don't like, they won't run it. And I think that was one thing that was cool to see about UASF is the UASF soft fork for activating SegWit didn't come from Core. It didn't come from Blockstream. It came from an anonymous, somebody who chose to not take the flag of any entity, and the users decided to run it, and it worked. So it shows that if the Bitcoin community wants something and Bitcoin Core isn't giving it to them and Blockstream isn't giving it to them, that they'll still run it, if it comes from an anonymous source or some other new entity of people or cooperative. So and as far as the censorship aspect goes, I mean, come on. The guys censoring the most are the ones crying the most about being censored. The reason why Ver and these people started complaining about being censored is because what happened was there used to be a time when the Bitcoin Reddit was very popular and more of a central place for the community online than Twitter is. And Twitter seems to be Telegram seems to be more prevalent now. But back, 2-3 years ago, the Bitcoin Reddit was very popular, and a lot of people spent a lot of time there chatting. And then when Roger really wanted to start using, he claims he never used sock puppets, but when Roger and the people who like what Roger says started using sock puppets, they really started spamming that forum and making it pretty much useless. And so it really degraded the value of having that place. So the moderators got more strict. They decided that things had to be talking about Bitcoin and not talking about Dash or other stuff. And so they got more strict, and they had to. And I'm glad they did, because the place was useless for a while. Unfortunately, I think that naturally people moved more to Twitter over time anyway, but partly because that happened. Then RBTC came, and the RBTC as a forum is just ridiculous. It's just all parroting of the party lines of Bcash or whatever Ver likes. So Ver, over the past few years, has made this effort to basically dominate certain social media that he can. People say he controls Bitcoin.com, RBTC, the @Bitcoin Twitter account, people now think. And so he uses these kind of marketing methods to kind of spam, at such high frequency and volume, so something sticks. And mainly what sticks, most likely, is new people. And that's the really dangerous part, is they come in and they don't know who to trust. And this guy seems confident. He has a loud voice. He's getting all of his words repeated on Bitcoin.com, on RBTC, on @Bitcoin. He must be, a thought leader or something, right? And so it's dangerous. Yeah. But they're the ones doing the censoring. You try and say something nice about Bitcoin and RBTC. You try and say something bad about Bcash and RBTC. You see how fast it gets downvoted to shit.
Oh, I've tried.
Yeah.
I actually, you know what? I should post this video there afterwards. See how.
Yeah. See how long it lasts.
Yeah.
With my face on it, it won't last long.
No, it won't. It won't be in there. Anyways, okay. So I guess you know what? Let's get into just now. You said that you're not super familiar with the way that like the onion routing and everything on Lightning is going to work. I did watch Andreas Antonopoulos listen to on Let's Talk Bitcoin. He talked quite a bit about Lightning, and so one of the FUD points, and I hope you don't mind me just kind of chatting about this a little bit, and then give me your thoughts afterwards. So basically the way he described it was every transaction between two people on the Lightning Network is onion routed, which means that it's encrypted for every hop that it makes. And every single transaction is purposely takes 20 hops to get to its destination. And between each hop, the recipient of the Bitcoin can only see the last address that the Bitcoin came from and the next one it has to go to. Has no idea whether it is the second hop or the 19th hop. And so a lot of the FUD that's coming out is that eventually there's going to be these large hubs on Lightning, and these are going to be centralized entities, and they're going to be subject to KYC AML, so that they have to basically audit and make sure where the funds are going and collect information. But with onion routing, if it goes through one of these hubs and all they can see is the last hop and the next hop it's going to, it would be very, very difficult to then track where it's going, because how do you unpack that? So, I mean, you were talking a little bit about how, yeah, maybe there could be larger nodes in the Lightning Network, but do you see, if those nodes become malicious, do you see people even using them?
All right. Well, while I don't know the details, like the specs of Lightning, I'm not a developer. I'm not going to pretend I am. I don't know, 20 if it's a requirement. If it only work, if you have to do it, if you do a person-to-person channel, obviously there's not going to be 20 hops, I'm guessing. But there are different ways to open channels. I know that much, and I know that having a hub, you do have to stake the coin. So you can only really have as much liquidity or volume in your channel as Bitcoin that you stake in the beginning, right? So if you can provide a lot of cheap transaction liquidity by opening 100 Bitcoin, hub, then maybe you will have more traffic and more people using you as a utility. I don't know. The network topography, I don't think is going to be totally predictable. But I do think there will be nodes that are big, hubs that are bigger than others. And as far as them being censorable or having to do KYC AML, well, it's not really practical, right? Because first, it's the same thing that miners are already doing. They're processing transactions, right? And so what's the difference between a Lightning Hub processing one and a miner processing one? The hub gets less money for it. I don't know. Maybe it's more anonymous. I don't know. But in the end, even just sending Bitcoin from one address to another address, the plausible deniability aspect is huge. So you're kind of getting a certain form of anonymity just in that. So I don't know that it's going to that centralized entities are going to think of it any different than they think of miners. Will they eventually feel like miners need to do KYC or Lightning Hub? I don't know. I think it would be a futile effort, but I think they could do it to people like Coinbase, but they're already having to do it. So in the end, if you have to touch fiat, you're going to have to do KYC AML. If you're identifiable, they're going to make you do it. But if you're only touching crypto and only one crypto, it's going to be a hard fight for them to take on, because I can just spin up, a Lightning Hub and not even say who I am. Like if I have 100 BTC and I just want to provide that liquidity and make a little extra money being part of the Lightning Network, they'll never know who I am. So how do you make me KYC?
Yeah, and that's not even taking into consideration the idea of atomic swaps, being able to switch between cryptos person to person seamlessly, instantly. So I very much doubt the KYC aspect of this. I did want to show one thing on the screen here. I'm just going to screen share for a second. This is a snapshot of the Lightning Network. I'm just gonna, sorry, let me just get it set up on my screen here. But very interesting to see what it looks like. Now, I don't know how current this is, but it's here, let me just see. There's a guy on Twitter. He shares a lot of fun stuff. And so this is the Lightning Network there. And yeah, I mean, sure, are you seeing that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean,
it looks a lot more dense than the last time I looked at it.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're looking at that, sure, yeah, you can see there's hubs there, but it's also look at how decentralized a lot of these other. I mean, if you didn't want to go through a certain hub, you can definitely be hopping around between any of these channels. So, sure, there are going to be large entities running hubs with large amounts of Bitcoin.
I'm going to guess you don't get to choose your hub path, though.
Currently, I think you basically it optimizes for the cheapest possible fee. So it'll look and see what pathway you can get your transaction there with the least amount of fees. And yeah, so it'll be kind of like I think packet switching. You know, you're not picking your route when you go to visit a website typically, anyways. So, but yeah, anyways, I just wanted to quickly show that on screen. There we go.
There's I can't find it right now, but remind me later, and maybe you want to link it in the description. There's a really good article that came out about Lightning scaling and what it might look like, how large it could scale. But it came out before SegWit was even activated, I think. And so try to find that, because I thought that was a really interesting article. I haven't read it in a while, so I don't remember the details, but you know, I think that it's relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to kind of, for the end here, I'm going to dive into a couple last things. One of them is, what are you excited for going forward in the crypto space? Is there anything that's caught your eye that you think is a positive development that you can't wait to see how it pans out?
That's an interesting question. I would say I am excited to see Lightning fully implemented. I'm excited to see what it does to fees, what it does to speed, maybe what people design now that they have that speed. You know, like, I don't know. There are certain throttles that we have just on hardware, but you know, it's going to be interesting to see, like, for example, with Xotika, whether we can make every tip be on Lightning. I think from talking to my developer, it's not going to be practical, because you don't want to be encrypting every tip just as a computer process. So it just might not be practical in that sense. But it will be interesting to see what people do, making decentralized networks go faster, or decentralized exchanges, whatever it may be, being able to hold value in a way that is more trustless. So I am excited to see Lightning fully getting used or getting adopted in actual, you know, use cases for businesses and whatever. I'm excited to get out of this little bear trend that we're having with the price. I don't know how long it will take, but it will be nice when it's over.
As far as like hardware wallets and apps and stuff like that, are there any that you've recently tried, or do you have like a go-to wallet, especially for new people that are coming into this space? Do you have any kind of tips and tricks as far as applications or security measures that you use that you think
I don't know if it's the best security measure, but I try to be more of a moving target with what I use. I don't like to do just one thing the same way all the time. I have tried hardware wallets, not lately, but I have tried a number of them in years past. And I don't know, I can't perfectly articulate why, but every time I've had any mentionable amount of value on a hardware wallet, I've removed it within 24 hours. I don't feel safe for some reason. Maybe because I have no ability to audit the hardware, or you know, I just have to trust a little more. I already have to trust my PC. I already have to trust a laptop. You know, whatever it may be, and there really isn't much difference. It could be just as compromised. We've seen AMD chips are all backdoored now, and we had the Intel scare. So it's almost like nothing is truly trustworthy in a hardware sense. But having like any significant value on this little device, it just makes me paranoid. So I tend not to use them. And what was the other part that you said?
Oh, I was going to say, as far as
software.
Yes.
I think you have to keep tabs on the reputation of the software you use, because it doesn't always last. For a while, for example, Mycelium was a very popular wallet, and then they did an ICO and they kind of scammed people, in my opinion, and then they kind of stopped development, and the whole thing is shit now. And so they don't manage the size of their mempool properly, so sometimes you can't get transactions in when it's, you know, there's all kinds of issues they have, and the thing is basically turned into a dead project. So I would stop using that immediately, personally, and I don't recommend people use Mycelium anymore, even though it once was a popular wallet. Copay from BitPay is another. It's sleek, it's easy to use as far as for a mobile wallet, but now BitPay is exhibiting all these like dangerous behaviors. They did the BIP70 thing where like their codes are incompatible with regular Bitcoin wallets, and they're doing these things to kind of fork themselves away from other people in other ways. And so I would never recommend Copay either, even though it's sleek and nice looking. Right now, I like Samurai is probably one of my favorites for a mobile wallet.
I can vouch for that one. I really like Samurai.
and Green, and I like the developers. I'm actually going to be doing an interview with them soon,
Awesome.
with the guys from Samurai, and Green Address. You can use that for as a web-based wallet or for a mobile wallet. Those are both pretty good for software. But if you're using a full node, I'd just Bitcoin Core.
Yeah. Fair enough. And to close it out, I was going to ask you, actually, you know what? Before I close it out, I'm going to ask one more time if you can tell people first where to find you, whether it be your Twitter, any websites, anything that you want to let people know about.
Sure. You can find me shit posting on Twitter as BitcoinErrorLog. If you search the same handle, you'll find me on YouTube. I've got some videos there, the VR interview with Vinny Lingam, and then I did some episodes with a friend of mine where we played video games and talked about Bitcoin. And that's really the main places to look. I don't really use Reddit too much, so don't look for me there. Nothing important. Yeah, awesome. And then obviously my business is Xotika.tv. If you are interested in using Bitcoin to talk with live adult models, then that's the only place you can do it. You can deposit Bitcoin and have it be used as cash on many platforms, but Xotika is Bitcoin only. So Bitcoin in, Bitcoin out.
Awesome. Awesome. And I have a final question for you before we wrap up here. And you can get as detailed or as vague as you want with this. But I usually ask people, what does Bitcoin represent for you?
Bitcoin, I guess the simple way to put it is I think that, one, it's a great way to save value. It's a way to kind of have your value stored in a way that isn't going to be inflated. Well, I mean, yeah, there are still coins that have to be printed, but the inflation rate is predictable and known and finite. Whereas if you try to save your money with dollars, you have to worry about inflation. If you try to store your money in stocks, you have to worry about when this bubble will finally crash. And with Bitcoin, even though it's volatile, I think you can have confidence that, on a kind of 2 to 3 year basis, you're always going to have a nice gain just by storing your value there. But as far as the facets of Bitcoin, other than that, the ability to have permissionless money, just be able to hold your money and transact with other people without somebody having a say whether they like it or not, or knowing that you're doing it, just having some privacy. I'm not saying that people need to have Bitcoin to commit crime. I mean, it's better to use cash in that case. But I do like the ability to have people not have their fingers all on what I'm doing. I like to have my freedom. Being an independent individual and having control of the time that you spend in your life earning, and you want to know that it's yours.
Everybody watching, thank you for watching the BTC sessions. John, thanks a lot.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, drop a tip if you're able to, and share this video. Also, if you'd like to help the show in another way, check out my affiliate link down below to grab yourself a hardware wallet to help secure your crypto. I will see you guys next time on the BTC Sessions.